Are you ever reading or looking at something you see online and wonder how true it truly is? Well, I'm going to teach you how to look for bias and how to fact check it. Today I'll be fact checking a news story and an opinion piece about how COVID-19 pandemic affected children. To be media literate and know how to fact check in order to differentiate between facts and opinions is very important. After looking at multiple sources and fact checking all of the statements in both the news story and the opinion piece I selected, and fact-checked with other sources, I am now about to tell you what is indeed a true fact and what may only be an opinion. The pieces I will be checking today is a news story from NBC News by Chloe Cushman and an opinion piece from Washington Post by Rebecca Fenton, and then comparing them in order to check for facts that are true and possible biases that may have occurred. When news articles are wrote, they are supposed to be truthful, and that means they shouldn't have bias, but sometimes it's impossible to remove. The NBC News article by Chloe Cushman titled "COVID-19 is having devastating impact on children" is a news story that should be all facts and bias-free, but we should still fact-check it to make sure. Cushman claims in the article published by NBC News that food banks have been slammed with hungry families, as an estimated 17 million children, many largely cut off from school lunches, are now in danger of not having enough to eat. That's an increase of almost more than 6 million hungry children compared to before the pandemic. Behind this opinion, there is also a true fact. Indeed, the article "COVID-19 Pandemic Fueling Rising Child Hunger, Malnourished, Wasting Risk Rise Among the World" by Kim Chrisberg explains the following. In 2019, U.S. children hit at a lowest point in 2 decades. The COVID-19 pandemic arrived, wiping out years of progress in the matter of months. This statement shows how much the pandemic tore apart eating habits of young children. I mean, for it to be the lowest in 2 decades, that is a huge deal. Cushman also states that emergency rooms have seen a 24% increase in mental health related visits from children ages 5 to 11 compared to last year. An article from the National Library of Medicine confirms that explaining and multiple surveys were done and came up with the following results. Survey studies regarding children and adolescent mental health and COVID-19 indicating that anxiety, depression, loneliness, stress, and tension are the most observed symptoms. The NBC article by Chloe Cushman also explains that there is a very large increase in chronic absence and ghost students. Chronic absence is the missing of a dangerous number of school days, and ghost students are those who have seemed to unenrolled completely but are not. I found an article from attendanceworks.org that explains how the COVID-19 pandemic affected and changed attendance policies. While policies were changed, children were still missing out on more school than officials had hoped. And the article also explains that being at school doesn't ensure success, but the missing of this instructional opportunity definitely will not help. All in all, I found that the news story from NBC to be factual and reliable. There are some sections that did seem a bit biased on certain things because of personal experience and stories that were shared. These emotions may have came through as a bit biased, but they were interviews, which is one way that news can be collected. Cushman used these interviews to show and prove facts that were already stated. While opinion and editorial pieces do have opinions and biases in them, that does not mean that they should not be able to be backed up and based off of factual statements, as a news article should be. An opinion article published by the Washington Post and wrote by Rebecca Fenton titled "COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on people's lives. We owe it to them to see this through" gives opinions, but they should still be backed up by reliable facts and statements that can be checked. In this article, Fenton states many different opinions. Her first one being that we as a community are still not aggressively fighting for the rights of children enough. Her reasoning for saying this, she states that in certain states that bars after COVID were reopened before the safety of children was ensured in classrooms. Another thing that Fenton claims is that isolation precipitates depression or suicidal ideation. She explains throughout her article that children were taken out of school, forced to stay home, and were unable to hang out or see friends of their own age. The article, as I stated before, published by National Library of Medicine, explains that surveyed showed that 23% of children had depression and about 5% had feelings of loneliness. These statistics prove Fenton's point that COVID-19 made children feel alone and have feelings of depression. An additional fact that Fenton believes and the parents of other adults need to work for to help adolescents heal. A press release from the CDC titled Helping Children Cope states that when parents and caregivers give COVID-19 calmly and confidently, they provide the best support for their children. This is proof that if a child is seeing how a parent is working, then they will be able to work easier through it. Fenton takes a very personal and emotional approach to the effects of COVID-19 on adolescents, but her overall opinions are backed up by reliable facts. The story told in the news by NBC Chloe Cushman is an editorial by Rebecca Fenton, and they're similar in different ways. While the two pieces are put together, they give information differently because one is news and one is an opinion-based editorial piece. They should be based on the same facts. The facts given in both articles focus a lot on psychological health. Both Fenton and Cushman explain how COVID-19 affected children in the ways of mental state. An article from healthychildren.org explains that ongoing stress of COVID-19 has many effects on children. It also explains that there are more than 50% increase in suspected suicidal attempt emergency department visits. This quote showing that the mental effects are important. One particular fact that is mentioned in both articles is the problem with children having access to food more easily and struggling children. The nation's health website explains that an estimated 6.7 million children are malnourished in low-income countries. While both articles are about harmful effects of COVID-19 had on young children, there's definitely an emotional appeal. This usage of pathos over logos and just logical facts may seem like a type of bias, although throughout both of the pieces there are facts to back up and prove the effects that are being talked about. The emotions and personalists of the stories may seem biased, but the facts are over. Opinions and facts are everywhere we look. Unfortunately, we need to be able to differentiate them. The news article from Cushman and the editorial piece from Fenton both have reliable facts that is also emotional based. It is important to be media literate and be able to differentiate between facts and opinions and to know better when you are fact checking them. The more and more fake news that is spread around, the more important it is that we can tell the difference between them and know how to properly fact them so that we are not fooled by fake news. Hopefully next time you see something online, you won't just believe it right away and you will look for potential bias and check the facts.